I did move the screen, but we are in the same place, I promise you. At the end of the last video, we were working on coming up with the FD and the AD for the three paths here from router 1 to router 3, whether it be 123, 143, or 153. Because before we can even begin to work with the feasibility condition and worry about that, we got to know the AD and the FD. So we've come up with that, and I know the screen is going to be split a little bit. Bear with me because there's a reason. Here with 143, we've got an FD of 40. We know that's going to be the successor just by looking at it. We can eyeball that one. The path of the best metric is going to be the successor. And there it is. Now we have to decide, is the path 123 and is the path 153, are they both feasible successors? Are they not? Is only one a feasible successor? Well, we just apply the feasibility condition, which is a highfalutin way of saying we look at these other paths and look at the AD and compare it to the FD of the successor. The path 123 has an AD of 20. That's lower than the FD of 40 of the successor, so 123 is indeed a feasible successor. See, easy as can be. 153, the AD is 75, which is much higher than the FD of 143, and therefore 153 cannot be a feasible successor. Anytime you see a number that large, especially it's just a little out of whack with the other numbers in a diagram, whether it's on your real exam, practice exam, job interview, I don't care, that's a big red flag right there. And again, the path 143, that's our successor. 123 is our feasible successor. 153 is neither. So you can see one good reason for having the FD-AD concept. It's not just to confuse us, because of course we're not confused about it anymore. But there's another, I don't want to say hidden reason, but an overlooked reason. And I'm going to save some of your furniture here, because I've seen good men and women slam their heads into tables and walls and everything else when they're trying to work with unequal cost load balancing in EIGRP. And you might say, well, first off, we already covered that, and secondly, how complicated can the variance command be? Well, it's not complicated, we know that, but the feasibility condition that we're looking at here and the variance command, they're linked. A route that doesn't meet the feasibility condition cannot be used in unequal cost load balancing. And you give that just a moment or two of thought, it makes perfect sense, right? Because what is the feasibility condition all about? The feasibility condition is deciding whether a path is valid and loop-free. And if a path fails the feasibility condition, it's because EIGRP suspects there might be a problem and there could be a routing loop. Well, if a path is failing that and may have a routing loop, we don't want to use it in any kind of load balancing. And in the previous example, that path 153, it had an AD of 75, which was higher than the FD of the successor. It failed the feasibility condition and therefore can't be used for load balancing. That is why it is a great, wonderful, stupendous idea to write out the FD and the AD of all the routes in your network before first deciding on the variance value, and to determine whether a path can be used in unequal cost load balancing to begin with. Because if a path is failing the feasibility condition, you can set that variance up to the max. It's not going to matter. It is not going to matter. And let's look at a slightly different drawing here. You could look at this path and say, okay, I want these three paths. And you're using one of them and the other two just kind of sitting there, the paths from 1 to 5, and you say, okay, just give me the metrics, I'll set the variance command and we're good to go. Well, the individual path metrics here are 40, 55, and 115. So you just say, okay, variance 3. Because we know since the FD of the successor the metric is 40, then we do variance 3. That means that any path that has a metric of 120 or less is going to be brought into the routing table. Well, 115, definitely less than 120, so we have no problem, right? Well, our math is fine, but it's the feasibility condition that is going to bite us in the behind. And looking at the FD and AD for each path here, we know what the successor is going to be just by looking at it. 125's got an FD of 40, that's our successor. Well, 145 meets the feasibility condition because its AD of 35 is less than the successor of 40. The 135 path does not meet that condition because its AD of 75 is larger than the successor's FD. Now, what you could actually do here, of course, and should do, is set variance to 2 in this situation, because that would allow unequal cost load sharing over the single feasible successor. For exam and real world purposes, you should make it your best practice to just get in the habit of setting variance as low as possible while still getting the load balancing you want. Trust me, it's a really good habit to develop. Because the thing is here, no matter what the variance is, no matter what you set it to, the third path will not participate in load balancing. And I've seen people or heard people, if I saw them, I would have told them why. But, they'll be in a lab or something and working on this. It's like, well, I set the variance up to the maximum. I'm still not getting this one EIGRP path. Can't figure out why. Well, it's because it failed the feasibility condition. I guarantee you that's the situation. I think that is enough FD and AD and RD there for a while. And what we're going to do in the next video is concentrate on our 3 EIGRP administrative distances. Because with OSPF, let's face it, you got one basic admin distance, 110. You got a regular OSPF route, AD is 110. Learn by redistribution, AD is 110. You got an OSPF E1 route, AD is 110. OSPF E2 route, AD is 110. Well, EIGRP and OSPF differ greatly in this area because we have 3 admin distances to be concerned with in EIGRP, and one of them's a little hard to spot, but I promise you we're going to spot it in one of the upcoming videos. I will see you there.